Welcome to Antipatterns, Antipatterns, your playbook for your DevOps, agile, digital, cloud transformation. No prior experience necessary, your one best way, best practice program to digital nirvana. Today, I am joined by Cuss Ranton, Russ Clanton, Russet Potato, Ross Geller, Boss Clanton, Ross Clanton. So, Russ, how's the paleontology going?
You call me Russ? The paleontology. Do tell. What are you getting at?
So, Russ, tell us what you do. What do you do?
Well, I'm the chief architect. I'm the chief architect at American Airlines. I'm responsible for leading our delivery transformation. I've kind of made a career out of leading technology transformations, especially over the last 7 or 8 years. I've introduced some patterns that the industry uses a lot to drive these things. Things like dojos as immersive learning centers. Have also been active in setting different community related activities. You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah. So you mentioned dojos, Russ. So I'm presuming then dojos, that's a martial arts term. So then I'm guessing your nickname is Karate Kid Clanton. And I'm guessing with the Dojo Consortium that there are, no doubt you have dojo certifications available for purchase. In terms of measuring success, I find that a count of people who are certified is a fantastic measure. And you know what? I can help you there as well, Russ. Should you wish to have any certified really agile practitioners, Andy Patton can help you with that. It is important to spray paint people when they come in the door, so they all know the one best way. Another very good measure for success, Russ, is a count of how many people are using Jenkins. That's another good measure for success. And I presume this is how you're measuring success, Mr. Russet Potato.
That is definitely not how we're measuring success. In my experience, certifications are fine. I think the problem is that becomes the goal. People start. All right.
Sorry, Russ. All right, keep going.
Anyway, I think certifications become the goal, and what happens is people are focused on training, and they get trained on things that they're not actually applying at work and on their job. And I think one thing I've learned is that one of the most important ways to make sure that learning sticks is that you're learning in the context of how you're working. So I don't really need any crap practitioners in my organization.
So a bit of advice from Dogbert for increasing productivity. The 3 keys to obtaining higher employee productivity are: number 1, slogans; number 2, threats; and number 3, mandatory unpaid overtime. From the genius, from the genius Dogbert.
All right,
Dogbert himself, absolutely. And obviously, Russ, language is important, and you have to use the right jargon to make you agile, because if you're not using the right jargon, then you're not very agile. For example, MVP, which is, in my experience, just another name for phase 1, even if phase 1 takes 12 months. That's your MVP. And minimum means doing barely enough, which quite frankly is nowhere near enough. It means that people are slacking if all they're doing is the minimum. Another term that I like to use is hybrid agile. That's a great way to have the certainty of a commitment to a plan, a fixed solution, drop dead milestones that you can hold people's feet to the fire on, and then the word sprint 10 times in the Gantt chart, because clearly we want people to be sprinting continuously, not slacking off. So, Russ, what jargon have you found makes you agile?
I just hope no one brings you in to consult with their companies, because what you're saying actually concerns me quite a bit.
You'd be amazed.
I think that actually I probably wouldn't be amazed knowing some of the enterprises I've worked with. I am not a big fan of jargon. I think terms like agile get heavily overused. Terms like DevOps get heavily overused, and people tend to make them mean whatever they want them to mean. To your point on MVP, though, that you brought up, I think it's not about a maximum viable product. It's not about being phase one. Unfortunately, I do think that's how companies tend to step into this agile stuff, is they treat it that way. And really what we're getting at there is, what is the most minimum you're right over there? What's the minimum thing you can do to test the value that you're trying to provide to your customers? And
Could you hear that?
And you focus on that, and you iterate and you improve. I did. What were you listening to?
Unbelievable by the EMF.
All right. I hope it was good.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So what's your next question?
Continuous improvement, Russ. So very clearly,
you feel very strongly about it.
Absolutely. However, only for the systems of innovation, not for the systems of record. Very clearly, the systems of innovation need to improve, but the systems of record need to carry on as they were 50 years ago. A fossilized relic like a living computer museum, complete with 70-year-old programmers in period costume. Clearly, the legacy environment is predictable, deterministic, knowable, and there are no new ideas or innovation. So we don't need to optimize for time to learning or value, or even improve at all for legacy. Putting aside the fact that some organization managed to create new legacy every single year, such that nearly everything is legacy, irrespective of its age. Even if it's only 2 years old, it's legacy. Makes sense not to improve that. And in my experience, it's too hard anyway. Don't you agree, Russ?
You work for Gartner? Because it feels like you just explained bimodal IT, and that's probably the worst thing I've ever seen come out of Gartner. I really don't believe in that at all. I've lived through that. I've lived through that exact approach that you laid out, where we separated things as the fast things and the slow things. You drinking beer now on the call? And the issue is, when you treat things that way, everything ends up moving at the slowest pace because things are dependent on each other. And I've actually seen how that's impacted organizations before when I've worked in them. You know, in my current organization, we've fully automated the delivery for our Siebel platform. That's a custom, off-the-shelf platform that people would usually, just like you just said, Andy, people would view it as the legacy slow thing. And it's not. We can deliver very fast on that platform because we treat it as important to optimize our delivery there. So it's really a matter of what's important to your organization. How are you going to focus on those things? Don't do bimodal. Please do not separate things into legacy slow and new shiny fast, and move your organization forward. Continuously improve the whole organization.
This interview.
Don't drink too much of that, by the way.
This interview is brought to you by Proper Job, the proper job for a proper job, for your dev hops transformation. Sponsored by Proper Job. Speaking of legacy, Russ, leaders don't need to waste their time getting involved in these types of transformations, I find. I believe it's a case of do what I say, not what I do. Transformation clearly is for them. They can figure it out. Key thing is to keep on starting initiatives, because the chance of success is so low anyway. And besides, the funding is available every year anyway. So you might as well start more stuff. And key learning, don't be afraid of failure. If somebody fails, you can just fire them. Am I right, Russ?
No, not in my opinion, at least. I think this is a good way for maybe you to get continual consulting income from these companies, maybe. But I think leadership makes or breaks transformation. It starts with leadership. How do they support their teams? How do they empower their teams? How do they push decision-making further down into the organization? It is about embracing failure. I mean, we're trying to get people to experiment, be comfortable with experimenting and learning. And how can they do that if they're scared of getting fired if they fail? It's just not going to work. I can tell you don't care, but it's not going to work.
You finished? So middle management.
I think so.
Frozen middle are called frozen middle for a reason. They take every opportunity to resist change, in my experience. What you need to do is you need to get out the art of war, deal with the resistors, get them out of the way or out of the company, as a good friend of mine once said. You need to crush the resistance. So how do you inflict change upon the frozen middle, Russ?
You don't crush the resistance. You know, I actually did think that way at one point to a certain degree when I was starting driving transformations in companies. And I've learned a lot over the years that these leaders play a really important role in running our business, and they have a lot to manage. They have to manage the demands of their team, the leaders above them, their business partners, and they're trying to change how their teams are helping their teams change how they work. That's really hard to do. I think the key is how do you enable those folks? How do you help them learn the new ways of working? How do you help them learn how to support their teams differently? And it's, you know, that's really what it takes for these things to be successful. And we definitely can't crush the middle managers and get them all out of the organization. It's not going to work. The transformation will fall flat.
Bit of advice. Don't give up the day job. Stick to the karate. So that wraps up another Antipatterns.
Right.
The playbook for DevOps Agile Digital Cloud Transformation. No prior experience necessary. The one best way, best practice program to digital nirvana. Tune in next time for someone who knows what they're talking about. Hi there, John Smart here. Andy Patton has left the building. If you haven't caught on, Andy's my alter ego, an advocate for anti-patterns that act as a headwind to delivering better value sooner, safer, happier. Maybe you can identify with what Andy believes are best practices. Hopefully, you're experiencing what our guests are advocating. And to be clear, my role as Andy Patton in this series is 100% parody. All of the guests have signed up for the intentionally uncomfortable banter and insults. Learn more about these anti-patterns and patterns for better ways of working, leading to better outcomes in my book, Sooner, Safer, Happier, available in all formats. I also encourage you to attend the virtual DevOps Enterprise Summit Las Vegas, taking place October the 13th to the 15th. The DevOps Enterprise Summit events and community are near and dear to my heart. I truly believe it's one of the best places to learn from the actual experiences of our peers and to make new and lasting connections.